Your coffee costs $6. Rent is up 40%. Groceries feel like a luxury. Medical bills, insurance, fuel, school fees, everything keeps climbing. Yet, we keep hearing that inflation is cooling and everything is under control. But when you look at your wallet, something just doesn't add up. So, what's really going on? Why does life suddenly feel so expensive? Let's break it down. The story starts in 2020. The world broke, and it never quite healed. When the pandemic swept across the globe, production stopped. Factories closed, shipping collapsed, ports shut down, and workers stayed home. But demand didn't disappear. People still needed food, electronics, furniture, and medicine. The problem was the supply froze. Simple economics tells us that less production with the same or higher demand equals higher prices. But this was on a global scale. A shipping container that used to cost $2,000 suddenly jumped to over $20,000. It wasn't just the cost of products going up. It was the cost of getting them made and delivered. Things that were once cheap became scarce. Bikes, used cars, household items, everything you could once buy easily turned into a lottery ticket. And when the world reopened, demand returned instantly, but manufacturing and logistics were still broken. That imbalance kick-started the inflation wave we're still feeling today. Next, governments flooded the world with money. To prevent a catastrophic depression, they injected trillions into their economies. People received stimulus payments, unemployment benefits were raised, and interest rates were slashed to almost zero. This created a very unusual situation. Many people were receiving money, but the world wasn't producing enough goods for them to spend it on. Too much money chasing too few goods always leads to inflation. And once inflation starts, it spreads like wildfire into areas that weren't originally affected: housing, food, services, transportation, and all our everyday essentials. The recovery became uneven. The economy looked good on paper, but consumers were the ones feeling the squeeze. Then came the corporate factor. While inflation was being blamed on supply problems, something else was happening behind the scenes. Corporate profits quietly reached their highest level in 70 years. Some companies raised prices far beyond their increased costs. They realized consumers expected prices to rise during inflation, so they used the moment to pad their profits without much backlash. Economists call this greedflation. But it's really just corporations maximizing their returns because nothing was stopping them. When we hear about inflation, we imagine increased costs from suppliers. But a big part of the price hikes came from companies deciding to raise prices simply because they could. And as consumers, we didn't have the power to fight it. Everyone needs the same food, shelter, and fuel, no matter the cost. Now, what about wages? We heard a lot about wage growth, but here's the harsh reality. Workers earn more on paper, but less in reality. If inflation rises by 8% and your wages only rise by 5%, you're actually moving backward financially. And that's exactly what happened to millions. Paychecks got bigger numerically, but purchasing power fell. The cost of housing, rent, childcare, and medical care rose much faster than salaries. For decades, worker productivity has increased dramatically while wages have barely kept pace. People are generating more economic value than ever, but only a tiny segment of society is reaping the rewards. Another huge piece of the puzzle is cheap money. For more than a decade, interest rates remained extremely low. Borrowing was easy and cheap. But instead of being used to build factories, create new products, or improve infrastructure, a lot of that borrowed money flowed into speculation. People and large investment firms bought up houses, not to live in, but to rent out, flip, or just hold as financial assets. Housing, one of the most basic human needs, became an investment game. Homes disappeared from the market and became entries in a portfolio. As a result, rents rose, and property prices soared far beyond what average incomes could support. For millions of people, buying a home stopped being an achievable goal and became a financial fight against giant corporations. On top of all this, global crises and long-term trends are rewriting the price of everything. The war in Ukraine spiked the global cost of energy, fuel, and grain. China's rising wages mean the products made there are no longer as cheap as they used to be. Climate change is affecting agriculture, shipping, and insurance, which in turn increases food and transport prices. The world is also slowly shifting away from globalized supply chains toward more domestic production. Bringing factories back home makes countries more secure, but it also makes goods more expensive. The era of ultra-cheap products might be ending. For decades, we enjoyed low prices because production was outsourced to low-cost countries and fossil fuels were abundant. That entire model is changing, and households are feeling the results in real time. Finally, the official numbers often don't reflect our lived reality. Inflation is calculated based on an average basket of goods. But not everyone lives according to that basket. If your rent goes up by 30%, groceries by 20%, and insurance by 18%, those increases hurt far more than a minor price decrease on a new TV. The official reports might say inflation is cooling, but everyday life rarely gets cheaper again. Prices go up, and they tend to stay up. You aren't imagining the pressure. All of these forces, the supply shock, the money printing, the corporate markups, wage stagnation, asset speculation, global crises, and shifting economic models collided at the exact same time. The result is what nearly every household now feels. Life costs more, and our incomes just haven't kept up. There's no single villain in this story. It's a complex combination of emergency policies, global restructuring, inequality, and economic decisions that affect ordinary people the most. The system has fundamentally changed, and millions are now trying to adapt to a new reality where you can work full-time, earn more than ever before, and still feel financially stuck. This cost of living crisis isn't just a temporary moment, it's the result of deep, structural shifts in how the global economy works, and understanding it is the first step toward surviving it. Thanks for watching. If you found this explanation helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe for more content that makes sense of our complex world. See you next time.